Salvete omnes. This is Abbey Latin, Liber Primus, chapter 13. This is the parsing exercise. Exercise E, parsing English to Latin. Number 1, Cententia prima. When the enemy approach the city, the consuls will warn the citizens about the danger. So when this will have happened, then the consuls will do the thing. Start with when, which is ubi, temporal conjunction. Subject of our temporal clause, the enemy, when the enemy, the subject, do this verb, then this will happen. But this action has to happen first, has to be completed before this will happen. The enemy, subject, nominative plural. The enemy is hostis, hostis masculine. We're going to make it plural. Remember, it is an I stem, but that does not affect us here. The genitive plural will be hostion, but its nominative plural will be the normal hostes. Approach is going to be the third person plural. We're going to make that future perfect because the approaching has to happen in the future and be completed, future perfect, by the time the consuls will do this action in the future. So we want the active indicative, third person plural future perfect of approprinquo, approprinquare, approprinquavi, approprinquatus, which can take either the dative, so city will be either in the dative, or the verb can take odd plus the accusative of motion towards. So we could put odd plus the accusative of city, which is orbs, orbis, feminine. So either urbi or ad orbem. Now for the main clause. The consuls, they are the subject of the verb will warn, whereas in the dependent temporal clause, the enemy are the subject of the verb approach. So the consuls, subject, nominative plural of consul, consulis, masculine. So the consules, they will warn, third person plural, future active indicative of moneo, monere, monui, monitus. So a second conjugation verb, you can tell by the eo, ere should be a macron over that e because it has an eo in the first principal part. E, us. So we want the future, take the present stem mone, chopping the re off of the second principal part, and then we'll add the third plural future ending bunt, monebunt. Citizens, this is going to be the direct object of the verb warn. Direct object is the accusative. We want the accusative plural of the Latin word for citizen, civis, civis, common. It can be masculine or feminine. Remember, civis is a third declension I stem, but that does not affect its accusative, just the genitive plural, which would be civium. About the danger, about is going to be the preposition de plus the ablative case. So we want the ablative of danger, periculum e neuter. We want the ablative. Altogether, we could have something like ubi hostes ad orbem approprinquaverent, consules cives de periculo monebunt. Remember, you can substitute ad orbem for the dative urbi, because approprinquo can take the dative. Optime. Secunda, Cententia secunda. Tell the boys a story about the gods and the goddesses. Remember, you should read this as tell to the boys a story. What are we telling? Are we telling the boys or are we telling a story? We're telling a story to the boys. So the direct object story goes to the dative indirect object boys. And that story is about de, gods and goddesses. So tell is going to be an imperative, naro, narare, naravi, naratus. A narrator tells a story, narrator. So we want tell. Let's go ahead and say it is a singular imperative, nara. Can't really tell by just the word tell whether it's a singular or plural imperative. Thanks, English. We'll go ahead and say that it's singular. If it were plural, we might write tell ye. So nara would be the singular imperative, just the present stem. Second principal part minus re, nara. We're going to tell to the boys, puer, pueri, masculine. We want it to be plural, plural boys, and dative case, dative for the indirect object, nara pueris. And the direct object of the verb tell is going to be story, fabula, I, feminine, a fable, which is quite fabulous. So we want the accusative direct object, fabulam, fabulam, nara pueris fabulam. And that story is going to be about, preposition de, plus the ablative. De can mean down from, can also mean about or concerning, like it does here. So we want the ablative of gods and goddesses. So gods, that's deus e masculine, a male god. And then dea I feminine, female goddess. We can use et for the conjunction and, or you can use the que, enclitic que, and put it on the end of the word for goddess. You could also use ak or atque. It'll be ak, ac, if the next word starts with a consonant, atque if the next word starts with a vowel. You have options. The story is de, about the ablative deis, et, remember that the ablative plural of dea is deabus, et deabus. You could also say de, deis, deabusque, or you could say de, deis, ac, deabus. And also, I dare say, the goddesses. Remember that ac atque is a souped up form of et. What happens when et goes to the gym? So, nara pueris fabulam de deis deabusque. Perfectly acceptable answer. Tertia, Cententia tertia. Ye owe much money to our friends. So, owe, that's debeo, debere, debui, debitus. Who owes? Ye owe, second person plural. And when do ye owe it? Right now, immediately, present tense. Ye right now owe much money to our friends, active indicative. So debeo, debere, debui, debitus. We want the present stem debe, that's a second conjugation verb. Its present stem is found by taking the re off the second principal part, like a first conjugation. So debetis. You owe much money. You owe a lot of money to our friends. Much, plural many, would be multus aum, to agree with pecunia I feminine. The direct object of the verb owe, multam pecuniam. Both must be accusative and singular and feminine. Multam pecuniam. And that money, that direct object of that verb, is going to the indirect object. This is the dative indirect object. We want the dative plural of noster, nostra, nostrum, and the dative plural of amicus e masculine. So, nostris amicis. Multam pecuniam nostris amicis debetis. Yeah, pay up. Optime, quarta. Our father saw a long river in Spain. Cool. Great story. Our father. So the subject, our father, because he's doing the action of the verb saw. Remember, if you're ever confused about what the subject is, go to the verb and ask yourself who or what is doing the verb. The verb is saw. Who saw? Our father saw. What did our father see? The direct object, the long river. Where? Location in Spain. Noster, nostra, nostrum, to agree with the nominative singular masculine, pater, patris masculine. So, pater noster, our father. He saw, he did it. Third person singular, perfect tense. We don't say seed. He seed a long river. No, he saw. Third person singular, perfect tense, active indicative. So it's video, videre, vidi, visus. The perfect tense is found by going to the third principal part, weedi, chopping off the I to get weed, and then you add the third person singular it, weedit. Pater noster weedit, and what did he see? A long river, a longusaon to agree with flumen fluminus neuter. Flumen fluminus neuter, because it's neuter, the accusative, because it's the direct object, will be flumen. And that means that longusaon must be accusative, singular, and neuter. Flumen longum. And that long river is in Spain. In plus the accusative would show motion towards, into, or onto, but in plus the ablative shows location, in or on. We are in Hispania, I, feminine. Hispania, with a macron over the final A. So pater noster longum flumen in Hispania vidit. Good for him. So happy. Quinta, Cententia quinta. Is your brother sitting on the wide bridge? Tell him to be careful. So, is your brother sitting on the wide bridge? We're asking a question. We are not trying to influence the answer in any sort of way. It's a neutral yes or no. Is this happening? If it were a regular declarative sentence, we would say, your brother is sitting on the wide bridge. Notice how in the interrogative, we invert the subject and the helping verb. Your brother is sitting on the wide bridge as a declarative. To make an interrogative, we say, is your brother sitting on the wide bridge? In Latin, we're just going to add ne, ne, to the end of the first word, whatever the first word happens to be. I like to make the verb the first word in an interrogative like these because the ne attaches very nicely to the end of verbs. However, the Romans would pick what they felt would be the most important or operative word in the interrogative to be the first word to get the ne. I'm just going to put the verb. So is, don't put sum because this is not a linking verb, it's a helping verb. It's helping the verb sitting. So we want sedeo, sedere, sedi, sessus. Who is sitting? Well, your brother is. Your brother is tuus aon, to agree with frater, fratris, masculine. So going to be the subject, nominative singular masculine. Frater tuus is sitting. He is sitting right now. He sits. Third person singular, present tense, active, indicative. So sedeo, sedere, sedi, sessus. It's an eo, ere, second conjugation verb. Go to the second principal part, sedere, chop off the re to get sede, and add the third person singular t ending. For your brother is doing the action. Sedet. That's going to be the first word of our sentence. Sedet, and then add the ne. Sedet ne, tuus frater, and then in plus the accusative means into or onto, motion towards, but in plus the ablative shows in or on location. And that's where he is. He is sitting on the wide bridge. He's not going into it. So wide is latus aon to agree with pons pontis masculine. In, and then we want lato ponte. Both need to be ablative, singular, and masculine. Remember, bridge, pons pontis masculine, is a third declension neuter. That does not affect its declension in this case. Pontium would be the genitive plural, but the ablative is ponte with the letter E. So sedetne tuus frater in ponte lato. Optime, sexta, sententia sexta. Will the soldiers soon break camp? I got an appointment. We got to leave pretty soon. So will the soldiers soon break camp? Will they? I don't know. We're asking a question. Either yes or no. It's neutral. So will they do this? The verb is will they break camp? And break camp is an idiom. Castra movere. where kasra is always going to be the direct object of the verb movere, but you have to conjugate the verb movere from moveo, movere, movi, motus. So if the soldiers are going to do that, they are the subject. Miles, militis, masculine plural. So milites. They will soon, you can say mox, you can say yam, and they will break camp. Camp will always be kasra, the direct object accusative, but you do have to conjugate the moveo, movere, movi, motus. So the soldiers are third person plural. They will break camp. And we want the third person plural future, active indicative, movebunt. Movebunt ne kasra milites mox. Optime. Septima, Cententia septima. Won't we stay on the mountain for a long time? Yeah, won't we? Now, we are asking this interrogative, this question, with an aim that the answer be yes. Won't we do this? Yes, we will. Won't is a contraction of will not, and will is the helping verb for the future. So the verb is stay. Who's staying? We. So we are the subject, first person plural. Will we not stay? The first word must be none. You must put none. Then we're going to put stay. First person plural, future tense, because it's will stay. Future tense, active and indicative. Stay is maneo, manere, mansi, mansus. To stay, to wait, to remain, maneo. None manebimus. None manebimus. In plus the accusative shows motion towards, into, or onto, but in plus the ablative shows in or on location. In plus the ablative of mons montis masculine. Remember that mons montis masculine is a third declension I stem. Its genitive plural will be montium, but its ablative singular will be an ordinary old monte with the letter E, monte. Nonne manebimus in monte, and then for a long time. It's quite a few words for such a little word in Latin. Diu, diu, diu. It's an adverb meaning for a long time. Nonne manebimus diu in monte. I guess. Octava, Cententia octava. Large animals are holding the farmers back from the river. Oh no, how terrible. So we have the verb are holding. Who's holding? The large animals are holding. What are they holding? The direct object farmers. So the large animals are our subject. Magnus aum, to agree with animal, animalis, neuter. We want both to be the subject, so nominative case. They must both be plural because it's animals, and animal is neuter. So animalia, because animal, animalis, neuter is an I stem. It's a neuter I stem. Its nominative ends in al. Its declension will be animal, animalis, animali, animal, animali, with the letter I. Then the plural will be animalia, animalium, animalibus, animalia, animalibus. Animalia magna. They are holding. Are holding. Teneo, tenere, tenui, tentus. But be careful, we're holding the direct object back. Re teneo, which turns into retineo, retinere, retinui, retentus. The large animal's third person plural, present tense, active indicative. So present tense is retine and then unt, third person plural, they. Retinent. So animalia magna retinent. They're holding the farmers. Agricola I masculine. We want the direct object. That means the accusative plural. Agricolas. We already did the back. It's the re prefix on retineo. And then from the river. This is going to be ab plus the ablative of separation, because we're separating, or the large animals are separating the farmers from the river. River is going to be ablative of separation, flumen, fluminous, neuter. So a flumine. Flumen is not an I stem. It's just a third declension neuter. So animalia magna agricolas a flumine retinent. Nona, sententia nona. Men, I do not fear the enemy. We will attack soon. Bold words. Men, I do not fear the enemy. Men, comma. We are addressing men by what they are. Men. So this will be direct address. The vocative case. Remember, the vocative is the same as the nominative in the plural always. The only time the vocative is different from the nominative is if we have a nominative that ends in us and it's a second declension. Its vocative will be the letter E. Amicus becomes amice. If the nominative ends in ius and it's a second declension, like filius, the vocative will be the letter I. Fili. We don't have to worry about that here, because this is men, viri masculine, and we just want the vocative plural, which is always the same as the nominative plural. Viri, comma. Now, remember, the Romans did not put the vocative first in a sentence, because the vocative often appears the same as the nominative. It's easier that you don't confuse the vocative and the nominative if the vocative comes later on in the sentence. So we're not going to put viri first. We'll put it after a couple words. I do not fear the enemy. So not is the adverb known. Fear. I do not fear. I am not afraid of the enemy. So that's timeo, temere, timui, no fourth principal part. To fear, to be afraid. Non, timeo. I do not fear. First person singular, present, active, indicative. That's just the easy first principal part. Non timeo. The enemy. Enemy, hostis, masculine. It's going to be plural and going to be the direct object, so accusative, direct object of the verb fear. Hostes, comma, viri, comma, non timeo. The enemy men, I do not fear them. Semicolon. We're not done yet. We will attack soon. So we is now the new subject. Future, first person plural future of opugno, opugnare, opugnavi, opugnatus. We will attack soon. Either yam or mox. I'm going to use mox. We will attack. Mox oppugnabimus. Hostes viri non timeo. Mox oppugnabimus. And decima, sententia decima. The soldiers ordered the farmers to carry the grain from the fields to the camp. Did they now? So the soldiers, they're the subject. We have ordered. Ordered is eubeo, eubere, iusi, iusus. Now if you order someone to do something, the someone whom you've ordered is in the accusative. We call that the subject accusative. So the soldiers, miles, militis, masculine, that's going to be our subject. They ordered the subject accusative to do, this is called an objective infinitive. It's the second principal part of the verb. So to carry. And then, what do you carry? The accusative direct object. So there's a difference between the subject accusative, the farmers, and the direct object. Both will be in the accusative. Farmers will be in the accusative. Grain will be in the accusative. But farmers will be what's called a subject accusative, because it's the subject of this infinitive. Grain will be the accusative direct object. Let's go back here. Make sure we understand that the soldiers is our subject. Nominative plural, milites. They ordered. Third person plural, perfect active indicative of eubeo, eubere, iussi, iussus. So iusserunt, iusserunt. Third principal part is iussi. Chop off the I, you get ius, and then add erunt, iusserunt. Now they ordered the subject accusative, agricola I masculine. We want the accusative plural, agricolas. And then they ordered them to do the objective infinitive, the second principal part. Porto, portare, portavi, portatus. The second principal part of porto, portare is, wait for it, portare. What are we carrying? The direct object of this action carrying is the grain. Frumentum e neuter. We want the accusative because it's direct object, frumentum. And we're carrying that grain from, separating from the fields to the motion towards camp. Ab, away from the fields. I'm going to go ahead and say ager, agri, masculine, ablative plural, agris, ab, agris. To the camp, ad plus the accusative motion towards, casra, orum, always neuter, always plural, camp. Ad casra. So, milites, agricolas, portare frumentum, ab agris ad casra iusserunt. Optime. Very well done. That concludes exercise E. You are now ready to move on to chapter 13's Lectio Latina. Volete omnes.